Absolutely.
Okay, so a very warm welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Greetings from Kyiv, and it's good to see you all on this spring morning in Kyiv. And we're absolutely delighted again to have Serhiy Hrabsky with us. This is our third in a series of online webinars. And today's online session will be available training options and tips for conducting business operations in Ukraine. I think many of you have already had the opportunity to listen to Serhiy for his valuable advice. And I think in the last session, we looked at the physical security requirements, the main focus on protection of personnel, facilities, operation, and contingency plans in a situation of armed conflicts. And I think today, Serhiy will provide more of an overview of the available training options and tips for conducting business operations in Ukraine. I'm very, very delighted to then, on that note, hand the floor over to Serhiy Hrabsky. Serhiy, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Andy. Dear colleagues, good morning, good afternoon. Yes, we continue a series of our presentations regarding the security situation and development of security environment in Ukraine. And indeed, as we discussed 2 sessions ago, and during our 2 sessions, we discovered many aspects of the security situation in Ukraine and possible reaction and possible operational support in Ukraine. Indeed, I can't cover everything here, and we have discussed, particularly in the last session, some aspects and some training options, and we discussed some devices and tools. However, it would be quite difficult for me to cover all aspects of those options. I'm talking about the devices, I'm talking about the movements, transportation, physical security aspects. And if you remember, we mentioned very important part of our activities in Ukraine, and that part means training options. Certainly, I could provide you some examples of what we do now, and on behalf of UN organization, because UN now conducts many mandatory trainings for all personnel operating not in such certain areas of Ukraine, however, in all Ukraine. And that is why now I'm so happy to introduce 2 main presenters for today. First presenter will be international company Acadian, which will provide us with some offers and proposals regarding the available training options, which are able to deliver to you. Moreover, I visited personally their facility, and I can confirm that they're having a great international experience. That company may offer you some very valuable proposals regarding the training options in Ukraine. And indeed, we can't ignore, sitting in Ukraine, we can't ignore and avoid local sources, which may be available for you also. And with that regard, I'm glad to introduce Nikita Karpenko, who will present also available local sources, available local training options on behalf of his company over here. So just to keep your attention, I'm happy to transfer a responsibility of presenter to representatives from the Acadian companies. They're already here, and we are ready to start right now. So, Acadian, guys, Vladimir, are you there? We contacted them a few minutes ago. Nikita,
yeah, hello. Can you hear me? Yeah, I'm just trying to get my video up and running.
Michael, yes, hi, we can hear you, we can see you.
Yeah, great.
Mike,
I've got a presentation here which I need to bring online. Have I got access to the tools?
Yes, there's a presentation on the screen. Is this yours?
No.
Okay.
Give me a second. Give me a second.
I just need a share screen option, I think, which I don't seem to have.
Olena, could you give Michael access, please?
Hang on.
I tried to, it seems like he has an access. Michael, you should see a green button at the bottom of the screen.
Yeah, it's just flicked up. Hang on. There we go. Hang on. Right. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Great. Okay. Well, thanks very much for that. Sorry about the delay. Well, I'll kick straight into it then. Acadian is a US-UK company specializing in medical and security risk management. Our mission is to provide an integrated medical security and training services to help companies manage their risk in volatile and high-risk environments. We operate globally, but our focus has been on Ukraine since the full-scale invasion. So most of our efforts now are focused on Ukraine. We've established a Ukrainian entity here, and I'll just cover off some of the highlights over the last year. Over the last year, we've trained about 1,000 people at our training center in Kyiv. That training consists of medical training, so basic BLS training, basic life support services, to advanced life support, to some more advanced emergency services training. We also do a combination of medical training and security training in terms of heat training, hostile environment awareness courses. And this has been a great success for us. We've developed a customized course for Ukraine, and we've got it accredited by an international accrediting body. And that's going great guns at the moment. In terms of experience, we've been established here in Ukraine since before the start of the full-scale invasion. Most of our consultants and most of our trainers have had experience on the front line, working with the likes of the BBC and the CNN sort of as high-risk advisors. So we've got a deep pool of experienced manpower to draw on. In terms of security, we do have some security operations. We're currently supporting some humanitarian and diplomatic missions. In fact, recently, pushing down very close to the front lines, delivering aid and delivering support to frontline communities and key personnel down there. And the final thing is our response services. So we provide emergency response services to NGOs, insurance companies, and international development companies. Essentially, this is mostly around medevac, but we can also respond to security incidents and so forth. So it's a bit of a busy slide, this, but this is when we talk about integrated risk management. This is our approach. So essentially reducing the likelihood of an incident by preparing staff. And that's mainly around the training. And we feel that's absolutely key. So that's from things like awareness training all the way through to developing skills on the medical and the security training. The protective services, again, you've got the security component, which is mobile security, static site security, and then moving on to the medical protection, which we provide on-site paramedics and so forth. And then finally, if something happens, we can respond, which we'll cover in a little bit more detail later. So that's medical and security response services, including Medivac and Casivac. So we run a variety of courses here. I'm not going to go through each one in detail. I'll pick a few out, our top, the ones we're doing a lot of at the moment. But we do have a broad range of training services which we want to develop over the next 6 months, this is, I suppose this is the central part of the company. This is the core. So we believe that if we get the training piece right and we've got the right consultants, then obviously everything else follows. So in terms of our philosophy, we do a lot of classroom sessions, but we make sure we have as much student engagement as possible. Outdoor scenarios, lots of hands-on experience, and doing exercises which gets everyone involved and you know, getting their hands-on practice, which is obviously absolutely key in all the training we do, but particularly on the medical stuff. In terms of our instructors, former military, we've got our chief instructor is a former military instructor. He's got civilian qualifications. And all our instructors are internationally accredited and qualified. Most will also have, as I described earlier, experience on the front line with the likes of tier one media teams who demand quite high standards in terms of their medical response. Quality assurance, we have an internal QA manager responsible for quality. And we do feedback after every training session and peer-to-peer assessments. We've got a training center in the town center. We've also got a training area which we lease off GDIP on the island in Kyiv. We've also got a driver training area a little bit outside Kyiv. So everything is really based in the city, although we can also do it in other locations. We've done training in Lviv, and we've got courses to run coming up in Dnipro soon. We've got lots of equipment, so dummy mines for the mine awareness training, which is a key part of the HEAT course, is sort of giving people an awareness of how to recognize landmines and unexploded ordnance. Lots of training aids in terms of AEDs, resuscitadols, spinal boards, etc. Okay, we've covered that. So just a few pictures there of the outdoor work we do. We conduct a lot of scenario-based training, and you can see one of our instructors in the middle picture going through some of the telltale signs of mine awareness. One of the other key aspects of our training is when our team is not engaged, which is quite often, we do our best to support the Ukrainian government agencies. So we've done quite a lot of volunteer work with GDIP. We've trained up various government agencies, providing them basic medical training, and that's like an ongoing thing now. So we've got a program which at least once a month we'll send people out to do basic training. We've also brought a team of doctors in from the UK, which was sponsored by us, to provide more advanced training. And that obviously helps us quite a lot with our relationships with the local agencies. So security protection services, So we have basically mobile protection, which is most of the work we do. Where we haven't done a lot of site protection at the moment, simply because there's not really a requirement for it. And obviously, in terms of, we do provide paramedics to organizations who want sort of on-site paramedics. So our close protection officers are closely vetted. You know, they've got impeccable military careers. They've got SIA qualifications and a minimum of FREC 3. Most of them got higher qualifications than that, which is FREC 3 is a medical qualification. In terms of training and vetting, we make sure that all our personnel are vetted by Ukrainian intelligence and undergo our own internal courses before we deploy them. So our drivers will do a driver training course, our close protection officers will do our close protection course, and everyone does the heat course. So it's we make sure that before anyone's on the ground, they're properly trained up to international standards. In terms of planning, we have a very rigorous, when we're talking about particularly in high-risk missions, we've conducted quite a few of those down to Kherson and you know, closer to the Russian lines. We have a very good journey management system which tracks all the incidents in Ukraine and allows us to put together route cards. We spend a lot of time on the journey management plan prior to deployment. It means we work out you know, pretty much what the communications protocol is, what the actions on are, make sure that we rehearse them beforehand. And this is not necessarily necessary for every single move, but certainly some of the high risk stuff, we'll make sure we do this on a regular basis. And we're currently doing this for a large USAID funded international development company. Again, all our vehicles are properly equipped. We've got medical packs, trauma packs in the vehicles. All our personnel know how to use the equipment, and obviously the standard breakdown equipment in the vehicles as well. As I say, not a huge amount going on the site security side, but it's certainly something we could do and we're looking to do in the future. Again, on-site medical care, we've got paramedics with lots of experience. They're not all ex-military. And obviously the requirement for you know, the pre-hospital care stuff is, you know, generally we're looking at people like HEMS medics, which is the helicopter response medics in the UK. They tend to have had worked, if they haven't worked for the military, they've certainly worked for the firearms police, fire and rescue, etc., etc. So they have a lot of experience working alongside frontline teams. And the final part is really just to go through our response services. This is relatively a new setup now. We have a 24/7 operations center based in Kyiv. We've got a technology platform which tracks personnel through smartphones or through satellite phones, which allows our clients to have a very easy method of alerting us. I push a button and we know where you are, and that initiates the crisis management response. So, you know, the first part of that is we have a case manager who basically authenticates the incident, and then, you know, using our resources or using local resources, we then dispatch CASEVAC aid or Medivac or a Medivac response, depending on the circumstances. And we can do this for organizations, but we're also supporting some international medical response companies, and we're also looking to do this with some insurance providers as well. The platform we use is called Atlas NXT, which is a great platform. It allows you to provide non-invasive tracking. So when you have the system on your phone and you're not in a high-risk area, it won't track you. It will track you once you start moving into a pre-identified high-risk area. So, you know, if you're out for dinner in Kyiv, you're not going to be tracked. However, if there's a critical incident nearby, or if you are in a high-risk area, you're tracked on a regular basis. And those protocols are set up between us and the client. We're currently doing an extensive survey of Ukrainian medical facilities in the east now, just trying to identify the medical facilities and what's available. And this is, again, it's primarily to work out, you know, what's available out there in terms of first line, second line response to a medical incident. And that's just a quick summary of our clients. So Chemonix, one of the USAID's larger implementing partners, who have a number of projects out here supporting, well, providing international development and humanitarian assistance. For Save the Children, we're conducting a whole series of training for them. So we've put through about 300 people on a heat course. We're now doing basic life support for them, and that's similar with ACTED. ACTED is a relatively large French NGO, and again, we're providing heat training and medical training for them, both in Kyiv but also in remote areas as well. The BBC, continuation of really, we provide a high-risk advisors to their production teams. I think we are their exclusive provider at the moment in Ukraine. We also do work for CNN and other media organizations on an ad hoc basis. So it's quite a broad range of clients there. But you know, we've been around now for over 12 months in Ukraine, and we feel we've got a pretty good handle on what's going on. And that's, well, final comment about the company itself. We're a UK-US company. We've got started off as a UK company. We've got a USA partner now, but based in DC. We've got a Dubai entity which deals with our Middle East and Africa business, and obviously we've got our Ukrainian entity. So just in summary, we've worked in high-risk parts of Ukraine since the beginning of the full-scale Russian invasion, supporting mostly media teams, NGOs, and international development organizations. We've got a large pool of experienced manpower on the medical and the security front who've worked throughout Ukraine. We've got a great track record with tier 1 clients. And, you know, I think one of the interesting and the exciting things that we're doing at the moment is the volunteer activities that generates excellent rapport between us and the Ukrainian agencies. Also gives us a much clearer idea in terms of what's going on, you know, within the communities and what's happening in the war. So that helps us enormously. And we've got a sufficiently large vehicle and logistics base with training center, 24/7 operations center. So that's pretty much it. I don't know if there's any questions.
Thanks, Michael. I can't see any questions in the chat. So no, Serhii, back over to you. If not, then Nikita, do you want to go next?
Hello to everybody. I'm running on the presentation. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, we can see you.
Awesome. So my name is Nikita Karpenko. I'm CEO of Training Center SAR and the Paramedic Group. We're located in Kyiv and in Odessa, and we are providing knowledge worth of life and equipment worth of life. So since 2009, the main threat in Ukraine, and the same in all the European countries in all the world, is accidents inside the companies, inside the offices, inside the manufacturer places. So in Ukraine, the situation is that the ambulance should come basically in from 10 up to 20 minutes for the life-threatening situations. However, this reality, and we're now talking about the civil time before the war. In the civil time, there is not so much time for us to wait, to stand and wait. That's why we need something to know, something to understand, and to provide some of the very basic things that we are selling here in Ukraine. We are providing knowledge worth of life, and we are offering trainings from the very basic life support for non-medical staff, advanced life support for medical staff, tactical combat casualty care for the non-civilians, for the military and law enforcement staff as well. We are certified by Ministry of Internal Affairs, by Ministry of Health, by State Emergency Service as well. We're working with the local Red Cross, with the International Red Cross Committee, as well with the different countries. What we do here in Ukraine, we're offering work safety trainings from the very basic first aid up to firefighting trainings. We're offering consulting and training regarding the accident management events due to the local Ukrainian law. And we are providing risk analysis as well. For our fields of what we're doing here in Ukraine, we are the biggest private training center who provide the very special education and the very special training here in Kyiv and in Odessa. We have a dozen of different special mannequins, and we can train from the very basic life support up to very special training like advanced pediatric life support as well. All of the trainings we're capturing with the video, and then we make work regarding the faults and what we're gonna do with it. We're working since 2009. We trained more than 50,000 of the students. It's international organizations, big corporations, and medical institutions. We're offering local Ukrainian certification. Also, we can offer American Heart Association certificates as well as European Resuscitation Council certificates, because we are certified by all of them. Also, in our Paramedic group of companies, we're importing and selling the medical equipment from the very basic first aid kits up to more advanced life support equipment and life-saving equipments like some special fire hose, etc. Our team consists of the actual medical workers. All of them are the doctors in the different fields of competency. Our clients is more than 2,050 clients, includes all agencies inside the Ukraine, from the WHO up to UNDSS. By the way, our company is certified to provide even emergency trauma bag training, and we are certified by UN. So it's long story short, what we're doing, we are trained for the first aid, and we can offer the whole packages from the training up to equipment that saves the life. So that's it. Andy?
Excellent. Thank you. So Serhiy, I'm not sure, Serhiy, how you're going to do this. Serhiy, over to you.
Yes, thank you, colleagues, for the presentations. It was very helpful for us. Indeed, we're supposed to have maybe questions to you, practical questions, and I hope some of our colleagues will have it and ask you about the questions. Moreover, I could say that in addition to all what has been presented, I would like to pay particular attention to the following. For instance, in our system, in UN system in general, we have like mandatory types of training, which must cover like individual preparedness and their organizational preparedness with regard of operations. And those training aspects might cover personal preparedness, as I said, it's like medical training. We also have a specific program called SAFE, Special Security Approach in Field Environments, we call it. We have a special dedicated training for our drivers, because of, having our drivers in place, we may rely on their support during the missions also. Quite interesting part of our training as a security training is communication training. You remember we spoke a lot last time about availability of different devices, and indeed each of our mission member must have some knowledge about how to use those devices in a, let's say, quite tense situation or dangerous situation. Indeed, what is the most important also, the frequency of those trainings. It must be done in accordance to our rules and regulations. Over there, why it's so important, because of, security, it's important part, but it's not, I do hope it is not like a 24/7 part of our life. And we need to galvanize, we need to reinforce our ability to have a readiness to respond to any security incidents. And our colleagues said, and I also said during my presentations as a security instructor, that guys, you may react not above the level that you have been trained. That is why it is very critical. It is very important just to create a training program. And I'm quite confident having our presenters here, we may rely on their support. Indeed, I would be happy to provide my support, my recommendations, and to share my experience about the training options. But idea of that presentation was just to share some available options here in Ukraine. Of course, we have dozens and dozens of companies operating in Ukraine, offering different training options for us. And what can I say? We make our own selection about that. But having a general understanding what is available in place, what is available in the theater, you may create, according to your own requirements, your own security training program, which is, I have to say it again and reiterate, an important part of our current operations in Ukraine. So having that presentation, I may say that you now have an understanding, a general understanding what's going on in Ukraine, what can we do in Ukraine. It is not necessary to send people somewhere out of Ukraine. It is quite difficult somehow, and more of it's not like a cost efficient. But we may we may create our own system, having quite a good and valuable resources inside of Ukraine. So main message from my side is it's up to you, dear friends, dear colleagues, to make your own decision and create your own training program, which may be available because I don't know your financial resources, I don't know your needs, actually personal needs of each organization, because if you are discussing for instance like a real plant or factory, it may that factory plant may have different approaches to compare with like any other companies which do not have any industrial facilities in Ukraine. So also another approaches may be used, and it was my idea just to invite our colleagues from different branches, so international or national branch, I could say, in order to have to push you maybe gently to make a choice. What do you really need? What part of training offers would be available and useful for you? This is my main message about dear colleagues. Any questions to our presenters? I hope our colleagues will share their presentations. I'm quite confident their presentations are not like a secret or confidential. So those presentations may be available for all of our participants over there. But any questions, dear friends? Yes, Mr. Mykola Daniluk. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't know why, but I didn't unmute and didn't ask. I'm sorry, no questions. And
Any questions? Maybe you need to detailize any options offered by our presenters here. You know, I'm a little bit upset, to be honest, because, you know, silence means that you or understand everything, can accept, or you do not understand. Friends, colleagues, it is a unique options. It took us some effort just to bring our speakers here, and do not ignore that option just to ask questions to them, because, you know, what can I say, actually, having an example of my organization as a Worldbank, we have a mandatory options such as first aid option. Now operating and resuming operations in Ukraine, we have a special operational requirements, special operational trainings, and further steps will be, we will come back to so-called fire life safety options. You know, in addition to our conflict situation, armed conflict situation, we should understand that the fire life safety or option is the biggest threat for us. Because if you know, from the security perspective, according to the statistic, fire life safety is may have like a main impact to our operations and activity. Okay. Moreover, I could say even unifying and amalgamating that option to the armed conflict threat, I could say that fire life safety will play more in bigger and bigger role in our operations. Also, I know that our presenters mentioned about the first aid training. You know, it is a very broad field for discussion, because of, frankly speaking, it is quite difficult to find out the same standards of individual first aid kits. And that is why each company has own approach to organize, to provide a training course, how to operate with a certain part or certain type of first aid kits there. With that regard, it's up to you, colleagues, just to have to, your own decision-making process and decision how to organize the process with you. And you know, what I'm normally talking to my colleagues during the presentation, during the security briefing, colleagues, who has the main and the primary responsibility for your safety and security? You have it. And your readiness, your preparedness will play a critical role, not only for your personal safety and security, but for security of your organizations also. And it may happen everywhere. You know, normally I have an example that having the training, first aid training, our colleagues were able to save life, literally save life of people, being in their vacation, not in operational environment, on vacation. We are talking about the situation of road traffic incident. Now it become more and more often because of, in addition to road traffic incident, I especially mentioned during my previous presentations, the mine threat, which may cause to serious impact and serious injuries, maybe death of our traveling personnel over there. It may happen everywhere, and you have to be ready for that. So I have to stop here because I see a couple of questions appeared over here. Yes? Joseph Graf, question to Michael. Do I understand properly that you offer mainly security services? It's less about training, but more about personal protection, drivers, bodyguards, right? Mike, can you please insert your coordinates into your presentation and share it with participants via Amcham? Mike?
Yeah, just to answer that question, actually, the biggest part of our business is the training. So I think, as I said in the presentation, we've trained over 1,000 people in the last 6 to 9 months. We have an ongoing courses running every week now in our facility in Kyiv. Mostly it's hostile environment awareness courses, which we've actually developed, but we've got them accredited by an international body. So you get an international qualification at the end of it. So I would say that the weight is towards the training, towards the medical training and the hostile environment training. The security is a kind of small part. It's a very, I mean, it's an important part of our business, but we have a couple of security contracts with some high profile organizations that are doing some high risk stuff. And I think, one of the reasons why I think we're picked for it is obviously we've got a lot of experience with the BBC doing similar types of jobs, because the security in Ukraine is very different to what you might be used to elsewhere. It's not really about it's more about managing the risk. It's more about knowing when to move and where to move and getting the journey management planning correct. It's less about close protection. There's no insurgency threat here. So I think the experience that we've got in terms of pushing media teams to the front line is a very similar skill set to what some of our providers want. So, but it is a much smaller part than the training. And I'd say that the second largest area is the medical response side. So that's a big area for us, both the medical training and also the medical response.
Excellent. Thank you, Michael. I have a question. I see a question from Julia, and I would like to address that question to Nikita. How effective online first aid training are if we have no possibility to gather employee for offline? Well, I have my own position about that because of but let's start from Nikita. Let's discuss it. Nikita?
Yeah, Yulia, thank you so much for the question. I can tell you that we do have an online educational platform where we can train different trainings, from some kind of security trainings, very basic, like the active shooter event, up to the first aid trainings. However, let's be honest, we cannot train how to drive a boat without a boat, actually. We cannot train how to hide without a practical skills. The same things with the CPR, with the tourniquet usage, with a different kind of practical skills. So of course we can do online refresh courses, online refresh trainings. However, the efficiency will be very, very low. So my humble opinion in this field, and I can tell you that it's not really highly effective. However, during the pandemic of COVID-19, we built this online platform to connect offline part of the training and online part of the training. For example, during the pandemic, we did a lot of trainings that consist of two parts: online training and then face-to-face, not crowding, not make a crowded place for one trainer and one student, just to train the practical skills. So, however, it's an exception, and our point of view that we need only to organize offline face-to-face trainings, because if we're talking about the first aid, 99% of all the skills are practical skills. If you will never try it by your hands, it means that nobody can tell for sure that this person will be able to do this skill in the real situation.
Excellent, Nikita. Thank you very much. And in addition to that, I would like to say that we also practice offline trainings with regard to the security trainings aspects. Because of, there is another part, we call it academically like muscle memory. Your muscle must know how you will react, how you will respond to any threat, how you will do your practice. Because of even having a CPR training, you have to train yourself about how to use your force to press the chest and other things there. That is why we may discuss some aspects having online training. However, it is a specific of the security training that the main volume of security related training must be done in offline format. This is a critical requirements for the security training, and that is why we dedicate a big amount of money to bring our colleagues for offline training and having like a field exercises over there, and we do it regularly. As I said, we need to repeat time by time and remind those practical skills. That is why, for instance, we have a certification for the first aid training every year for responsible person. Moreover, I do understand it. It would be quite difficult just to grab 100% of your staff for the training, but you may create like a certain levels or certain layers of involvement, such as in our case, we concentrate our efforts, first of all, to so-called security focal points. We then share that security efforts to our security response teams, such as floor wardens, which are responsible in general for fire life safety, but in parallel, they are more skilled from the perspective of first aid training. That is why you don't need, it is technically impossible just to bring everybody from your organization in one training event. However, you can share that depending on the particular needs of each group of people in the organization and create your own program. This is an ideal solution. Maybe it's about the cost saving. We do realize we are limited in our finance now. That is why we have to be mindful spending money for such trainings to make it less time consumptive, but more efficient, I could say. Also, question from Yulia to Michael. Do you have trainings for security responsible persons in the company? Michael?
Yeah, we my mute. Yeah, we do have training for security personnel. I mean, the main course that we're doing at the moment, to be honest, is internal stuff. So we're doing a lot of internal training for our staff. So close protection officers course, defensive driving course. But we have the capability. We have a lot of depth in our training. We've yet to roll out the full range of our courses in Ukraine, but certainly. Security is one of those courses, definitely, and security managers course as well. I mean, that's a course we can do as well.
Excellent, thank you. You have mentioned also about the safe drive course or something like that related to that. I may provide you our own experience because of in our case we have like an agreement with one German company. I would like to avoid the name of the company to avoid any forecast, commercial and other things there. But as an example, yes, we have such a agreement, and we created quite comprehensive program, which include like a basic driving training, and then we have like a especially dedicated driving training depends on our needs. For instance, I have been trained like a armed vehicle driver, but I have like a general knowledge about it. Then we expanded to specific needs. For instance, for people operating in Latin America, operating in the mountains, they have to be prepared for certain environment. Another requirements must be developed and taken into account for people operating in the sub-Sahara region or in Sahara and Northern Africa region. Another type of training we'll need for our drivers operating in Pamir region, in Afghanistan, in Iraq, and so on, so on. So that is why, you know, it's makes sense sometimes if you have or you create a quite good relationship with a certain company, just to have like a comprehensive development program, which may allow you just to make certain improvements and special dedication for certain trainings, which will cover your personal needs and your personal operational requirements in certain locations. Even here in Ukraine, we may have like a different approaches operating in different parts of Ukraine. For instance, northern regions will require the same operational manner as we need, for instance, in the south of Ukraine, in Odessa or in Mykolaiv or Kherson. I don't think so, but some differences may happen there. That is why it is another aspect of our training environment, just to create your own needs based on like a very comprehensive and basic preparation for your training requirements as a security training. Any other questions, dear friends? You know, we have like a, I can't say, Andy, that we have 2 nominated questioners, because we have 55 persons, but only 2 persons ask questions. So as I said, it looks like everything is clear, and I'm so grateful to our presenters, or nothing is clear. Guys, we have a time, and please ask questions, because yeah, indeed, you can call us at any time, and it would be my pleasure to answer your questions. But having that opportunity, having our brilliant presenters, please.
Yeah, I mean, I'll go for it, because I mean, Michael and Nikita, that was very helpful and very useful. Thank you. I was actually, but you preempted my question, because I was going to ask, what differences do you see in Ukraine with other areas that or sort of other geographies you worked with? But I think you sort of partially answered that. I think one of the issues that we face, and we're constantly contacted by head offices from companies, yes, because the official State Department recommendation is saying no travel to Ukraine. We had Secretary Pompeo in Kiev. We had dinner on Monday, and even some of the companies that did come, they were only allowed to come in the morning, and they had to leave in the evening. So they weren't allowed to stay the nights in Kiev. But at the same time, we have other companies, and they're absolutely fine. And they come for weeks, and we've seen some of the companies. Like last week, I mentioned Unilever. They're announcing a new $20 million factory they're going to build during the war. So I think we have very different ones. So my question would be, I mean, what I'm looking for is how can, you know, what would you advise us to say to these heads of securities that are sort of looking at Ukraine, and what credible messages can we deliver to them about the realities of what's going on the ground and doing business on the ground here in Kyiv?
I mean, that's a very good question. Actually, quite a difficult question, because a lot of it depends on who you're talking to. I mean, I feel that the perception of risk is much higher than the actual risk in general in Ukraine. Obviously, that's exclusive of the horrendous war that's going on in the east, but certainly, you know, most of the areas in the country are permissive or relatively permissive, and you just have to look at the statistics. I mean, I still think that most people are if there are casualties or if there are injuries, and Sergey will probably correct me on this or back me up, but I suspect that road traffic accidents takes the biscuit. I mean, that's the biggest risk. So, you know, where people want to think about Iranian drones and Caliber cruise missiles, it's much less of that, and it's far more, you know, bad driving, poor weather conditions. Certainly, when we look at our clients and the communities they work in, I mean, the biggest issue our clients have is ill health. In some cases, it's you know, so all the standard problems you get operating in any country, you know, exist. So I would say to them that actually the perception of risk is much higher than the actual risk, and it's the standard thing. You know, it's the bias you get because you see everything on the news and everything is like terrible, and it's missiles going off, drones happening, and you know, so everyone has this feeling that you're going into a hot war zone, which is not the case. So I would make the point that, you know, Ukraine's sort of open for business. I mean, it really is, and it's better to get in now before and get yourself established before everyone rushes in. So it's a real opportunity now, because there are the barriers to entry to getting in are going to be much higher in a few months' time or a few years' time.
Absolutely.
I don't know if that answers the question.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. And you know, you literally answer in my manner, which I permanently, desperately try to convince my bosses to resume our operations in Ukraine. Because of, you know, moreover, speaking with my colleagues who are now in Vienna, they have absolutely different perception of the situation over here. They said, reading news, we are under permanent pressure of ongoing war, and we have an imagination that rockets, missiles are permanently attack Ukraine, attack Kiev, attack roads, infrastructure, and so on and so on. But when you start to do your presentation, security briefings, we can see absolutely opposite picture. That people continue to live in Ukraine, people continue to operate in Ukraine and do business. And that is why, you know, I found another approach. We try to convince our bosses to come to Ukraine to see what is the situation from the ground. And our conclusion as of now, having already 2 visits of vice president to Ukraine, we will resume our operations in Ukraine. In a limited manner, indeed, with some precautionary measures, with some limitations, but the general concept, we will resume operations. And having a big, huge experience as the biggest organization in the world, we will try to combine, we will try to implement our best practices into Ukraine. Indeed, we can't avoid any mistakes over there, having like a general understanding of the situation. For instance, you know, we spend a lot of time disputing about what level of car protection do we need. Will it enough just to have like a B6 level, or we need like a V7 level or something like this? But those practical questions must be done during our operational assessment, which we normally do. And we now establish our protocol just to have operational mission into Ukraine to assess the situation at least every 6 months. That is why we detected, let's say, some changes in an environment which may allow us to resume operations in Ukraine. But yes, our general conclusion, and now blessed, I could say, our vice president, yes, we will resume our operations in Ukraine.
I would just add one caveat in that I do think as Russia continues to falter on the battlefield, there does the risk of some sort of I'm not talking about asymmetric attack. I'm not talking about nuclear. I think that's not on the cards. But I do think that as they get desperate, they will look for increasingly desperate measures, and we saw that last year with the increase in attacks on civilian infrastructure. So I do think as the desperation mounts in the Kremlin, then you've just got to have a slight awareness that that things that you know they might try something else sort of unpleasant. But that would be my only caveat to what I've just said.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, sometimes when people ask me, Sergey, what is your forecast and how can you assess the situation right now? I could say, guys, we have to divide our assessment in two parts, like a part of so-called common sense and standard analyze, and some sort of unpredictability, having a business, let's say, with the Russians at the moment. We can't predict what may happen with in their brains, how they will react, because it is not like a symmetrical and predictable response to any changes of the operational situation in the frame of armed conflict. However, we have to keep in mind those caveats, as Michael mentioned. But at the same time, it was actually an idea why I started my previous presentation from the three main C of personal security: common sense, communication, and calmness. So based on that, we may develop our own programs and our own protocols of doing business in Ukraine. Nikita, maybe you have something to add here, because you are in one of the threatening part of Ukraine. You are in Odessa, and probably you could share your own experience. For instance, yesterday, I especially highlighted in front of my vice president the event, what happens, that explosion happened, and only after that, the air alarm was launched in Odessa. Maybe you have some like a practical point of view from the perspective of the security situation. And actually, Odessa is a critical point and critical part of Ukraine from the perspective of business operations. What is the situation in Odessa? What can you share with us at this moment?
Thank you, Sergey, for your question. Basically, I fully agree with Michael, because due to the statistics that we are receiving from the local departments of the Ministry of Internal Affairs, from the police, basically Ukrainians, which is not located in the contact line, in 99%, they're dying from the health disasters and from the traffic accidents. It's 99% of all that happens. For your understanding, the criminal level is so low for all of the years of the independence of Ukraine. So, and the main thing, I believe that one of the participants of our conference wrote on the chat that the biggest risk in Ukraine is being at the wrong place at the wrong time. That is true, it's correct. So it's a luck. Basically, in the big cities, the situation like Odessa, like Kyiv, Odessa is very, very safe and quite stable. The main threat is rocket missiles. However, the Russian invaders, they're shooting only the very special locations like the strategical electrical plants, etc., etc. So they're not the main target is civilian objects. And basically, I even cannot remember right now the moment when they did shots to an objects inside the city. Last half a year, all the areas, all the damaged areas was outside the city's electrical plants and all the connectical elements of these plants. So basically, it's very, very safe right now. Of course, when we hear safe in Ukraine, it's not really connected. However, when we are inside and we're living in and traveling in different parts of the Ukraine, Odessa, Kyiv is really, really safe places. The chance is to be hit by the rocket is lower than a chance to be hit by, by an elephant outside or being, or being bite by a street dog, wild dog. So the truth is like this. Sergey?
Yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely right. We actually covered in our previous presentation, dear friends, mentioning that, guys, there are certain locations in Ukraine where we may operate and where we do not recommend to operate so far. When my people ask, Sergey, why we shouldn't come to Kharkiv, because of I said normally because of we do not have like a special forces and we do not have like a rescue operational team just provide immediate extraction from the application, and we have to be mindful. And let me come back again, guys. Your personal safety and security in your hands. You must think about your personal safety and security and train yourself. If you looking for operations in Ukraine in the future. Without that, your life will be much more complicated, I could say. Moreover, your low level of readiness, your low level of training will create troubles and issues for your managers. It is also quite important part of our business, and with that regard, sorry to be quite academical again to say that the security not only your personal business, it's like our shared responsibility. Any other questions, dear friends? No. Well, I do hope that you will contact our presenters, or you can contact directly to me, having already my contacts. And I would be happy just to explain to you any additional aspects of the training environment in Ukraine. So because of, as I mentioned many times, there is no like one single approach how to organize. And you should be more realistic and probably more creative, I could say, organizing and creating your own security training programs over there. And I repeat, it is a very important part of our business and our current life in Ukraine right now. Andy, over to you.
Well, brilliant. So, well, thank you, Serhiy. And I think this wraps up our three-part series of events on something really so important for everyone, because I think many managers like myself here in Kyiv, the first thing we wake up every morning and is our team safe, are the members safe, and is everyone healthy and safe. So I think this is the number one priority for our members. We've just finished a brand new survey, which we did together with USAID, which will be sharing the results next week in Washington. But I can disclose to this group that the number one priority concern for all members is security and safety. So I think this is so important. And I think it's important that we get it right. So, and I'm very glad that we have some fantastic people like Serhiy. So thank you for your passion, your leadership, your professionalism in supporting us. And I'll remember for the rest of my life, the recommendations you gave us in February 2022, like the beginning of February before. So we woke up on the 24th of February here in Kyiv, and we were pretty much, we had your recommendations in place, and I think it did help. So, but again, Michael and Nikita, thank you for everything you do. And again, to all our members. So any members have any questions, feel free to reach out and we'll be happy to make that connection. But I think, yeah, it's, especially as we approach Easter, sort of Western Easter this weekend, and then Orthodox Easter the week after, wishing everyone a safe Easter. I think it is about the resurrection, and I think that's what we're looking for. We're looking for the next step, and the resurrection will be this victory. I think we are hearing a lot about the counter-offensive that's coming up. So maybe one of our next events we will have in Yalta and in person. So I think that's what we're very much hoping for. And I think it's I remember the days when we were down in Yalta and we had events and I think it's remembering all those who are on the front lines, who are employees of our member companies that are serving and doing a phenomenal job in terms of the resilience, in terms of fighting for freedom. I think they inspire us, but also it's our companies that inspire us, that they continue to do business in Ukraine during these challenging times. So again, thank you, everyone. Stay safe, God bless, and together towards victory. Thank you.